Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Thursday, the 7th of January. All right, now, unless you're hiding under a rock, you will know the big sort of global news is the Trump supporters storming Washington. So what this is creating is a massive, massive debacle, but a very confusing issue as far as the markets goes. I think they're sending the National Guard. They've got all sorts of things going on. I think someone has been unfortunately shot dead. So this is going to escalate a bit. We've got to see how this thing plays out. So that's dominating proceedings. Now, let me just pull this back to what, it's where the market is and what you need to be looking at. Now, with the markets and the way the geopolitical issues are sort of lining up, you can't just go extremely vanilla with the way the normal markets connect. And what I mean by that is you say, look at the US equity markets. Historically, you probably just look at the Dow or the S&P 500 and go, well, that's up. They're up. So you've got a bit of risk on profile. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. The dollar block going up, the dollar pairs going down. But one thing you have to sort of be aware of, and this has been quite prominent the last, at least 6 months during all this lockdown fiasco, is the NASDAQ, right? The tech stocks. They have been one of the major catalysts or the drivers of the risk on, risk off profile. Now, they are down 1.4%, right? You look at the profile here. So the Dow Jones move is offset by the NASDAQ. And funnily enough, that sort of tells us a big story, because even though we've got the profile of a risk on as far as the majors go, right? The dollar block going up, the dollar going down, they haven't moved far at all, right? And that's because this move in the equities is somewhat disjointed. Now, what we are seeing is, gold's moving. I'll tell you what else is one of the big things that you need to keep an eye on is Bitcoin, right? Now, I'm not overly sort of, biased one way or the other with Bitcoin, but they are buying it. It's a safe haven at the moment. And look at this for the month to date, right? We're 7 days in, it's up 25.5% for the month. This is probably the safe haven that everyone's charging into, particularly in the US at the moment. So just keep an eye on that. It's pretty hard to sort of get in and gauge what's happening, but looking where everything lines up is very important. So then you look at, if we come back to look at the sort of normal fundamentals, durable goods, factory orders, on par, if not anything, a little bit better than expected in the US. So that's good, right? Things are moving along, but what isn't moving along is the political situation and Trump sort of refusing to give up office. Maybe they'll drag him out. He's got, I think the inauguration's on the 20th, so they've got 13 days. It's going to be interesting to see how this develops over the next 24 hours, whether they can nullify this protest and get things back on track. At the moment, when you look at the major pairs, if I bring this back, actually, just before I do that, just look at the dollar index itself as well. So we are seeing some price movement, but it's sort of just gyrating around this 89 sort of 50, clear resistance at 89.90. So the dollar just maintaining that slow downtrend, not really running away with it. So when you come back to the daily market insight, you're trying to work out where things are. I've added a few things to the table, right? So up the top here, we've got the equity markets, right? This is key to identifying whether it's a risk on, risk off profile. As I just sort of pointed out to you, it's a miscommunication. It's one nullifies the other. So to me, there's no sort of clear risk on, risk off sentiment just at the moment. If you go scroll down through the pairs, right? You come down through the major pairs. It's a bit of a mixed reaction. As I said, on the 24-hour period, there wasn't much movement at all. The two key pairs, Aussie and Kiwi, right? These two pairs here still shooting to the top side. Very happy with what's going on. There's no resistance on the top side, whilst the other pairs are sort of just thrashing about a bit. And underneath that, you've got gold, which was down 1.68%. Now, I'm a little bit surprised at that on the day, considering what's going on in the US. As I said, there's a bit of a transfer into Bitcoin, if anything, for my liking. And oil, massively overdone for the month, right? Up almost 7.8%, basically on the back of OPEC limiting supply again. The game's up for those guys, surely, but it's only up 1.28% on the day. You've got to keep an eye on this, because when you get such a massive skew and it's just on a supply and demand issue, that's got to correct at some point. So it's well worth keeping an eye on oil as you go forward from here. The rest of the pairs, well, I tell you what, it's been a bit of a muddled start to the year, and that's primarily because of the Donald. As I said, he's been sort of sitting there biting his nails. Now it's time to get physical, and he's rallied the troops, and they are sort of digging in. So we'll see how that plays out. At the moment, with the currencies as we come into the Asian session, not a lot going on just here at the moment. To me, in my opinion, the US North American session is the epicenter for all these announcements and activities. That's where you need to be focusing on those markets. Okay. And just when you are looking for that risk on, risk off profile, look at the US equities as a whole, not just the Dow or the S&P, include the NASDAQ, right? Because that has been the big benefactor of the lockdown. And that's where a lot of cash is these days as well. All right, guys, that's it from me. A little bit of a tricky one with Trump supporters storming the US Capitol, but we'll see how this plays out. Unfortunately, the fundamentals here coming up, to me, aren't really going to come into play. And there's a few good things coming out too, but I can't see, the European retail sales or Australian building approvals, etc., impacting at this point. All right, guys, have a good day. Cheerio.